Dinosaurs are what inspired most of us to become reptile lovers in the first place. But what if I told you there were 5 real-life dinosaurs that you could keep as a pet? You can't tell me that when you look at this lizard or so many more species that you don't think of dinosaurs basically immediately. In fact, there are so many things in common, although they're pretty distantly related, and in fact, no lizards are dinosaurs, although there are some still that do live on this planet that lived at the same time as dinosaurs. But every depiction of dinosaurs that you've ever seen likely had a little of influence from a real-life lizard. In fact, Tyrannosaurus rex loosely translates to tyrant lizard king. So although dinosaurs are not lizards and never were, they all have a lot of similarities. Starting off at number 4, Shinosaurus, or Chinese crocodile lizards. Now this is a Fiji banded iguana, by the way, or Tonga banded iguana, but he's looking at the Fiji banded iguana male and they look like they want to fight each other.
Get off my lawn.
So let's just switch them out real quick. Shinosaurus are an animal that you've probably never heard of before or maybe never seen before because they're really rare. That's why they're number 5. They look a lot like how we depicted dinosaurs in the early movies, say like Jurassic Park, for example, or early drawings, those books that you read when you were in school as a young child, if you're like in your mid-30s like I am. All of those images were depicted because we compared them to lizards, which we'll get into more later. And these animals here, crocodile lizards, which look a little bit like crocodiles, the descendants of crocodiles were around further back than dinosaurs even. Chinese crocodile lizards look so much like dinosaurs. The males, which you'll find a lot more than females in the wild generally, are going to be guarding their pond or stream by gaping their mouth open, just like a dinosaur. Very cool animals, but very rare. In fact, I only know a handful of people who are breeding the species, or at least attempting to breed in these species, like my friend Dion at Reptiles. He's got an incredible collection. He's got 3 individuals, and he just put them down for brumation a few months ago, and now they're ready to go. And we're hoping that they produce animals this year, because there's maybe a dozen in this country of Canada, and in the US, maybe a little over 100, not very many of them at all, and they're endangered in the wild too. So yes, you can keep them in captivity, but they're number 5 because they're the hardest one to find for sure. Number 4 is monitors in general. Monitor lizards have captivated me since I was a child, Komodo dragons being one of them, and when you think of a dinosaur-looking lizard, that is what you think of. Now, obviously, Komodo dragons make terrible pets, and that's not what you want. You do not want a Komodo dragon, even if you could find one, to be a pet. And in fact, most people don't want a monitor. But because I'm including them all together, there's one for everybody. There's the really prehistoric looking ones that look like bigger, scarier looking dinosaurs, things like blackthroat monitors and savanna monitors that have a big and blocky head, stouter body. But to me, the animals that look most like dinosaurs in the monitor family, well, 2. Asian water monitors have to be here. I can't think of anything that looks more prehistoric like a raptor than a black dragon, which is a melanistic version of an Asian water monitor. Now, Asian water monitors in general, they're big, 6, 7 feet, sometimes maybe up to 8 feet, really big. They spend most of their time in the water or around the water. They generally are not as tame as you see here. This is at a park in Thailand where they're protected and not afraid of humans, but in the wild, they're gonna be flighty, and if they do bite you, it's an event. These are big, strong, powerful animals that eat things like crustaceans and crush down on them like it's nobody's business. The great news is most Asian water monitors in captivity that have been socialized are not going to have this issue. And when I say they look prehistoric, here's a great example. I was walking around an expo last week and I saw this gentleman named Robert with what looked like a dinosaur on his body. This was a 6 or 7 foot black dragon water monitor, and let me tell you, when he moved his head, it looked like a dinosaur. Just the way they move their head around doesn't look like a lizard, it looks like a bird. And birds are much more closely related to dinosaurs than lizards are. In fact, we think most dinosaurs, or a lot of dinosaur species anyway, have feathers or had feathers when they were alive. But as far as lizards go, that look like a raptor, like how they depicted the velociraptor in the Jurassic Park movies, there is very little that moves and acts and looks physically like those animals than a black dragon. I'm gonna show the clip one more time. Like, look at this thing. Look at the way it moves its head. Now, if you're like me and you don't have room for a 8-foot animal, although I would love to have one, it's my number 1 bucket list animal ever that I don't have, maybe consider a tree monitor. Because after I talked to Robert, I went to go talk to a guy named Frankie about his monitors, and let me tell you, These things look even more like raptors in my opinion. They are much smaller, so regular people like me can have them. I've got a blue tree monitor. There's a bunch of different ones: black tree monitors, blue tree monitors, greens, yellows, BX, spotted. There's a whole bunch. But my favorite are the blues, and this is my guy Stitch. If you want a whole video about how we set him up, it's right here. It's one of my best ones ever. Please watch it. Please watch it. But that looks prehistoric to me too. The way that their face is so slender and unique, and tree monitors have very dexterous forelimbs and long forelimbs, which means they can go digging for things. Even if you put a bug inside of like a pill container, for example, that their snout is too small for, they will dig it out with those alien looking forelimbs. Talk about clever girl. These are super smart, crazy looking animals. I am so proud to have a blue tree monitor. I absolutely need more of them, and maybe one day I'll get myself a black dragon too. I really hope so. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the day that I almost wet myself from excitement. Of course too, I'm trying to pick the animals you could actually find and be able to buy. Shinosaurus excluded, the best way to find animals if you're looking for them on this list is Palm Street. Palm Street is my new favorite way to buy reptiles, and it's gonna be your favorite way to buy reptiles or sell them if that's what your thing is. Don't get me wrong, going into a reptile shop or an expo is awesome, and I encourage you all to do it. However, most of us live far away from the majority of sellers, and that's where Palm Street comes in. It's fun, and they're shipping across the country. Even animals that don't occur on this list, like crested geckos, for example, oh man, I've seen so many cool ones I didn't even know exist. You go into one of these live auctions on Palm Street, the seller will show you the animal. You can ask them questions on the spot. Hey, can I see the tail again? What's the age? What kind of food are you feeding it? Whatever you want, right then, right there.
Whatever animal you want, Adam, I will pull it out. I got the high expression camos, I got white tree frogs, blue tongues.
The timer starts when the auction goes live, and within 2 or 3 minutes, the highest bid wins, and that animal is going home to a brand new zip code. If you're looking for the most fun and seamless way to get yourself a brand new reptile friend, you gotta see what I'm up to on my new favorite app, Palm Street. Link in the description, and if you're selling reptiles, I got something special for you down there too. I mentioned the bird thing a second ago, so before we go to number 3, just keep in mind that birds are kind of dinosaurs. Clint did a whole video about it. If you don't watch Clint's Reptiles, he's like way smarter than me, explains this stuff real good. Those things to me are like the craziest comparison to dinosaurs. Things like shoebills, nightjars, or cassowaries. Those things are dinosaurs, even emus. The sounds they make, the way that their feet look, the way they move, their eyes, everything about them is dinosaur-esque. But this is a reptile channel, not a bird channel, so let's move on. Oh, also these things, tuataras, which you can't have because they're like severely endangered, and they're not a lizard, by the way. This is not a snake or a lizard, it's its own thing. And tuataras date back, or that genus dates back to 200 million years ago, which is way before dinosaurs went extinct. Okay, now number 3. Number 3 is the most obvious one on the list. If you've seen this scene from the original Jurassic Park in 1993, the Dilophosaurus, first of all, it's cool. This is what got a lot of us into dinosaurs and why all of us want a frilled dragon, which is number 3, by the way. However, making direct comparisons to actual dinosaur species, Dilophosaurus is a real thing, but it didn't have a frill and it didn't spit venom. In fact, the reason that they have that frill and spit venom is because they wanted in that movie for the animal to look more menacing and more unpredictable, when in reality, all they did is put a frill from a frilled dragon. That's what it's inspired by onto a dinosaur that actually existed, and then it spits venom for some reason. But frilled dragons make great pets. Sort of. They actually don't make the greatest pets. They make pretty good pets, okay? They're about the size of a bearded dragon, right? I've got the Indonesian version, which are smaller, more drab looking. The Australian version, I've got 2 of those that aren't full grown yet, but they get quite a bit bigger, a little bit more robust, a little bit more menacing looking, red frill. But either way, if you have a socialized one, they're probably not gonna frill up at you that much anyway. In general, they're not that unpredictable like they try to depict in Jurassic Park. In fact, they're pretty easy and you know what they're gonna do next, very predictable. The problem is they take quite a bit of space for what they are. It's a 3-foot arboreal lizard that needs lots of room to climb. And they eat a lot of bugs. That's what they eat. They eat bugs. They can eat rodents and quail and stuff like that too if you really want, but most of their diet, the staple, are insects, and they eat a ton of them. So you're gonna be feeding this thing constantly if you want it to be healthy, and this costs quite a bit of money and is kind of time consuming. But I love them, so glad I have them, and I'll never not have one. Number 2, Cyclura. Cyclura, so we're talking about the 11 species of rock and rhino iguanas, or those are the ones you probably know. Rock iguanas are from Cuba, or there's a few different ones, but anyway, Cuban rock iguanas, and then also rhino iguanas. They look like dinosaurs. They look like these land-dwelling things. Like, imagine they were 10 times their size, because really, they're 4.5 feet, something like that. Maybe they weigh 5, 6, 7 pounds, maybe a little bit more. Imagine if they weighed, I don't know, 10 times as much, or 20 or 30 times as much, and they were, say, 10 feet long, 20 feet long. This for sure would be a dinosaur. The good news is they're herbivores, so they wouldn't eat you. I mean, they probably would crush you, because they just kind of like walk around. They bumble around. This is a dream species for me, personally. I love them, they're great. You can't have them in Canada, where I am, unfortunately. However, if I could have one, I certainly would. An animal that spends most of its time on the ground, really simple to take care of, very easy care, personable, very much like, imagine a tegu that doesn't go crazy when it sees the sun. If you didn't see that video, our tegu goes crazy when she sees the sun.
Shut up about the sun!
And I'm gonna give you a bonus before number 1, Uromastyx, and I'm actually gonna give you a direct comparison. Ankylosaurus are in every children's book. My kids have them in their books, and I explain what they are, and they're cool, and they look like a battle hammer tank contraption thing. So if you want an armored animal that uses its tail as a battering ram, basically, or a whip, there's really nothing better than a Uromastyx. They're pretty protected. They do like to stick their entire body in between rock crevices to get away from predators, and all that's left is that spiny tail of theirs that they'll then just whip at you. So I would say that if you want something that's like a low-key dinosaur, get yourself a Uromastyx. They're super cool, they're dry, they like it very, very hot. I love them, they're super fun, but they're really not for me. I don't have room for them. But there's something that if I did have more room would definitely be in my collection, and that is number 1. Sailfin dragons. There are 5 species of sailfin dragons. 4 of them occur on Indonesia, Papua, that area of the world, and then one of them, the Philippine sailfin dragon, occurs in the Philippines. This is a dream species for basically anybody who's interested in dinosaurs, or lizards, of course. Even they're called a hydrosaur, so water lizard, basically. And that's what they are. They're gonna spend their time above lakes, streams, ponds, that type of thing. They're gonna be semi-arboreal, and they're going to be semi-aquatic. So these animals need a diverse range in the habitat that you give them in your house, and that's why I don't have one. I just don't have the space. I would love to, but I can't, so I don't. But they look like dinosaurs, and when you look at them, you just can't get over how insane they look. They just never gets old. And I'll say that most of these animals never get old. I am a snake person, but I'm also a lizard person. And the lizards that I have, I can literally just look at, stare at, for hours and hours and hours and never get bored of them. Because when I was a kid, I used to watch dinosaur movies, and I would make my parents fast forward through all the boring human parts of Jurassic Park so I could only see the dinosaurs. That was over 30 years ago. I still do that, by the way. So if you go see the new movie that just came out, enjoy. Just remember that you can have one of those at home too. You just have to pick the right one for you.